Hi, and welcome to another episode of the NCBA's Coffee Break series. I'm your host, Nathan Willner, and as part of our Get to Know Your NCBA Leaders series, we're excited to have with us today Ellie Tami, NCBA Treasurer and Distinguished Leader. So join me in welcoming Ellie.
Hi, Nathan. Thanks so much for having me today.
Absolutely, my pleasure. Let's dive right in. Ellie, why is serving as an NCBA leader such an important part of your professional life, and how does it affect your law practice?
Well, I'm very honored to be involved with NCBA at a leadership level. I have been involved with NCBA since I became a creditors' rights attorney in 2011. And my level of involvement and type of involvement has varied over the years, but I've been often parts of committees, serving on committees, or chairing committees, or co-chairing committees. Have been treasurer now. This is my second year as treasurer, and before that served on the board as well. Uh, this had, when I was freed up finally from sort of the daily litigation law practice to take a little bit of time to increase my leadership role with NCBA, really didn't happen until I had been practicing for a few years. I did join my firm right out of law school, more or less. And so in the beginning, I was in court every day. I was signing pleadings every day, doing all the things that we know young collection lawyers do. And by young, I mean young in the collection law field. Um,
So,
but
go ahead.
over time, I just found my practice and focus really morphed into more of a compliance role at the firm. Those of us who have been around for a while know that that was a change slowly over the years in the industry where we needed to have a real compliance team and a compliance lead, and that is my role at my firm. And being freed up from the daily docket, the daily court docket, I was very pleased to be able to add additional participation with NCBA onto my schedule.
Right. Well, we're excited about your participation in NCBA as well. But before we get into that, I'm kind of wondering what drew you to this legal practice, the creditors' rights. Um, how'd you get it? How'd you get here?
Well, I don't think anybody ever goes to law school and says, I really am going to law school so that I can be a debt collector. I'm maybe if you grew up in the industry, which I did not, I didn't even really know that it was a field of law that existed, specifically the debt collection practice. Everybody hears of creditors' rights, and there are a lot of aspects to creditors' rights and how one can be a creditors' rights attorney. Um, but the actual truth is that I was pretty fresh out of law school. I graduated in 2010 and I needed a job and I needed to be able to pay my bills. I had a family, and the law firm that I work for now had a job posting. And so it was one of the probably 150 jobs that I applied for at the time. And even when I applied, I was like, know if I could do that, but I really, I'm kind of not in a position to say no to somebody who's willing to give me a paycheck. So let me apply and see what happens. And I know that it's a later question about, I guess, kind of what kept me here or something like that. But I was surprised when I interviewed for the job that they were just people, normal human beings. And I really, we at our firm and myself personally pride ourselves on being that to consumers when we're interacting with them too, whether it's at court or on the phone or over email. We're just people. And it turns out the two people that interviewed that day are my now current partner, Matt, and our former CEO, Mrs. Gordon, and they're two of my favorite people ever in the world. And so that's what kept me here.
How big is your law firm? How many attorneys are involved? Are you in multiple states? And how long have you been an NCBA member. Tell us a little bit about what goes on in your day to day.
Yeah, so we have one office located in Eugene, Oregon. In our office, we have about 60 staff total, and there are 6 attorneys. That includes me and my partner Matt and our 4 associates. I've been a member of NCBA ever since I came on to the law firm in 2011. I started attending conferences, the fall conference of 2012, I believe, was my first NCBA conference. And so, you know, it's been a part of my life. The organization back then was called NARCA, but it's been a part of my life ever since I have been a creditor's rights attorney.
So, I mean, that's really encouraging to hear that you've been, from the beginning, part of NCBA and have found it, obviously worthwhile enough to get to the leadership position that you're in now. So, my question is, what's the best advice that you've been given since you started practicing?
Um, I have 2 pieces of advice. So first, the best advice I think I ever received as a lawyer, I actually was taught in law school, and that is that your reputation is the most important thing that you have, and the most important feature to preserve. And I find that just invaluably true. Our interactions with consumers, with other attorneys, with our cohorts, with our coworkers, even our family and friends. I I have witnessed firsthand the benefits of just being a nice person, which I genuinely try to do, and just being honest, truthful, forthright, and not, I guess, aggressive. Sometimes people assign that word to lawyers, especially litigation lawyers, which I am. And so I think just knowing that any interaction that you have with any person at any time, um, you never know where that is going to lead, good or bad. And so keeping a sterling reputation, I think, is probably the best piece of advice I ever received. Um, the most fun and my favorite piece of advice I ever received was that only thick-skinned lawyers need apply, and that was in the job description that I applied to when I applied to this job. And I liked it because it's a little bit attitudinal. It's a little bit true. It's a little bit cynical. And I think it just speaks to it speaks to a moment when that job ad was written. And so I like to think that I am a little bit thick-skinned, yet empathetic and genuine at the same time.
So that's great advice when dealing with, the general public and clients and consumers. But sometimes now we're dealing with artificial intelligence, not even people. So I've been asking folks and just curious to know, how has AI affected the way your firm operates?
Yeah, so a couple of points on that. I think it is affecting our incoming communications from mostly from consumers. I think that there, just for example, are answers to complaints being generated by AI, letters in response to correspondence from us being generated by AI. And so it's just been interesting to see maybe the same letter over and over again. And so, how much of this is AI and how much of this is automation, or just republication of the same letter, maybe out there on the internet? It's hard for me to say. In my own practice, I wouldn't say that we are really utilizing AI as such, but I do think that automation is just a necessary part of staying alive right now as a law firm, and I don't think that's just limited to creditors' rights law firms either. So automation in our field, in what I would term maybe a back office kind of setting, some um, rote tasks that have always historically been manual maybe can be picked up by an AI bot or by an automation. We have to be careful as lawyers that we maintain our independent legal judgment. and that we maintain our meaningful attorney involvement in everything that we do. And so I think that that's where the juxtaposition of AI, automation, and just being lawyers comes into play. And there's a lot to consider there.
Yeah, no, I think you touched on the most important highlights, but there's going to be a lot more talked about AI, and NCBA has a lot of legal education already in the books on this topic, and there'll be a lot more. So hopefully our listeners will make sure to pay attention to those webinars as they come out. So we're getting towards the end of our coffee break session. Um, Finally, what advice would you give a third year law student?
I would encourage that third year law student to be like me and be open to new experiences. So I said in the beginning, I don't think most, if any, students ever go to law school thinking that they want to be a creditor's rights attorney or be a debt collection attorney specifically. But what drew me and brought me into this life as a creditor's rights attorney is the people. And you can find good people anywhere. And that includes the people, the staff at NCBA. It includes the membership of NCBA. It includes the people at my firm. It includes everybody that I've connected with in my work in the last 14 years. So to a third year law student, I would say, number one, I hope you went to the school that offered you the full ride, not the one that you necessarily wanted to go with. And number two, just be open. You just never know. Keep that reputation sterling and be willing to try new things.
Um, that's great advice. And thank you so much, Ellie, for sharing your insights and experiences with us today. It's been a pleasure having you on our show. And I just want to also thank our listeners for tuning in to this episode of NCBA Coffee Break. Stay tuned for more conversations with our NCBA leaders. So until next time, take care to our listeners. And thank you again to Ellie Tami, leader at NCBA. Have a great day, everyone.
Thanks.